Hello, in this video we're going to look into various parts of this cinematic character. Let's take a look at some of these armor pieces right here. So let's just get the simple ones out of the way. We got this one right here, so very basic topology here. We can create that using a cylinder. We can even start with something like 8 sides, just keep it really simple. Alright, so in order to get that I can just apply the poly. Let's see if it's made up of multiple elements. And it is. So we've got this kind of piece here and the inner piece here. Although for this situation you may just want it to be one element, it's very possible. This artist decided to get into 2 pieces right here. Alright, so then I can just say bevel here. Get this. I will switch this to pick and then pick the object itself so I can use its local orientation. Alright, let's see, get that. If I want to be separate, just inset that and I can just, let's say, detach this. If I'm trying to replicate how these two are separate objects. Now once again, you can see that they did not leave it off right here. So you may be tempted just, for example, to leave it right here, but once again, you don't get that nice curvature and shadow right here. So if I just delete this loop, you can see what I mean. When you subdivide here, you don't get any kind of shadow right here because it just ends abruptly, whereas if you have the geometry there, you'll have that nice shadow area right there. So you kind of want to give an illusion for there being an inside without having to model the entire inside of the object. So in this situation, I can, for example, delete this, select these edges, and just kind of extrude just to have something on the inside. At this point, I could just use creasing or loops. I prefer to use creasing, but this artist has used loops. So just insert the appropriate loops to get the necessary sharpness that you want here. And then turbo smooth. And we can also just fix the N-gon, so you can see they actually use triangles. So since we don't really see the underside of this mesh, the topology doesn't really matter too much. However, if you really want it to be perfect, you can avoid using triangles. And just have this all quad result. There we go. So here we have kind of a diamond in the center. And you can see because of its shape, you need to be very careful and very exact with how you model this. So it needs to have this kind of exact triangular diamond shape. So as you can see, triangles are perfectly fine as long as it serves a purpose. So in this situation, having a triangulated mesh will give us this very nice result when you apply a diamond material to this. And I don't think this will be subdivided here because there's no need for it to be. A diamond has very sharp edges right here, so you can actually get away with no subdivision. So you just see an example of how triangles are perfectly fine in some situations. Even the whole mesh can be triangulated as long as it's the appropriate material here. So I can move this to the side. Alright. Let's take a look at this piece of armor. Let's look in element level. Alright, you can see how this is a separate mesh right here, and this is separate. So notice in the situation here, they decided to model in the detail on this main part right here. But notice how because this part is hidden, they did not even bother to crease up this area here. And so it looks like actually creases were used for this part, because if there was support loops being used here, it would be fully sharp throughout the entire region here. So it looks like they actually did use creases here, so keep on moving this. And we have different kind of parts right here. So in order to model something like that, I can just create cylinder. And so what I can do when you're modeling here is you want to keep it without reset X form for as long as you can. You can only reset X form once you're done. And that'll just make it easy to apply symmetry. I'll choose pick the object itself. All right. I can insert some additional loops to make some adjustments to this, get this kind of curve here. Or I can, for example, go into freeform and then use shift. I'm going to move this around, get this curve. All right, and because I have not reset the X form, I can apply symmetry. This goes measure right to the other side as well. Alright, so in order to get this kind of built-in object that's not a separate mesh, I can apply Turbo Smooth. I'm going to delete the ends first. Alright. Maybe go with one or two iterations here, and then what you can do is use the cut tool to kind of cut this shape. Let me just kind of move around a little bit. All right. Actually, I have kind of cut the wrong area here, so I'm just going to remove this. All right, let's cut right here. Going to apply symmetry, so you get the same topology on the other side. Then what I can do is inset a little bit here. So then I can use local normal and just kind of extrude out here. And here you have this kind of built-in detail. So you can see how it's sharp here and smoother here because part is hidden. We can take a look at the other side, for example, to see how that part is hidden, so they didn't bother to crease it here. But we can crease the full detail here. I can just use crease set for this. And notice how because this part is being blocked by these objects, we don't really have to worry about kind of closing up the ends here. And because we don't see the inside, we don't have to even bother with modeling the inside here. You can just remain with the back faces here with no thickness. Alright, I'm just going to make sure these are the correct edges. Maybe increase this value. And then open subdiv, and here is our crease happening here. can, for example, crease this just to make it sharp if I want it to be sharp in the middle here. Alright, and there we go. Now we have our crease detail like this. I'm going to go ahead and decrease the threshold to 0.001 just so that don't get that wadding effect. Alright, there we go. Alright, so now for the rest of these objects, we can just model them one by one. So what I can do is once again detach a clone here and then go into freeform, surface, pick this to surface, and begin to use step build to build another mesh on top of this. Going to activate symmetry right away so we'll see the other side. Switch back to step build and I can start to get this. Insert a loop through here. Right, something like that. And then I can just, let's say, turbo smooth, shell. I have to use a smaller amount here since it's a relatively small object. By angle. So if I just use this, I'm going to get an inset around here going all the way, which I may want. However, I may want just to go over here. So I'm going to use by angle and select all of this right here. So now if I use inset, notice how it just goes straight through here. Alright, then if I want extra detail, I can just bevel this out. Alright, there we go. Alright, in order to get these pieces right here, what I can do, for example, is just to select this, double click here to select this loop, and then just create a shape out of this. We now have a spline right here, which I can go into rendering, enable in viewport, switch this from radial to rectangular, greatly decrease this. And now I have this object. I go into interpolation if this is too complex and decrease this to simplify it, and there we go. I can see there's a little bit of detailing here, so I'm going to just apply edit poly, and let's say just select this loop and bevel to get that. Select, loop, ring, connect. And if you want to support loops, that's how you get it right here. Alright, and then last but not least, we have these little pieces, these little rivets, which we can do just by starting with a box, for example. Alright, I'm going to turbo smooth this. I'm going to select the bottom half plate on the z-axis. There we go. And here is a rivet. And so then I can just, let's say, make a bunch of copies and then use the clever text script or select in place. Left click on the object and left click on the surface, and it's going to go around the surface. There we go. And create more copies and just put them wherever you want. Alright, so in order to get it to be symmetrical, what I can do is just attach all of these. Not the center one. And I'm going to go into Symmetry, Mirror, switch it to Local, Alt-A, select this object. Align rotation, for rotation needs to be on as well. There we go. Select the appropriate axis X, flip it, and there it is. And after symmetry, I can then apply the poly and attach the center one as well. There we go. Turbo smooth, and those are our rivets. And the reason they are floating here is because of the pivot of this object. So what I should have done was, if I just clone this out here, I'm going to go into rotate and just reset the rotation to 0. What I should have done was just go in here, let's say the front viewport, go into hierarchy, FF pivot, and just kind of move this right up here. And that way when I'm using the clever text script or select in place, it's right on the surface. It's not floating above the surface. There we go. Here we have this detail. So what I can do to get that kind of shape is I can also just detach from here. So for example, if I just undo this detail, what I can do is just, let's say, go into Edge, double click on this, I'll go into Border, just select the entire border here, and then create shape. There we go. Decrease the interpolation, we have this. You can go in here and change the angle to rotate it. There we go, and then do some additional modeling on this. And there we go. So now I know how to model all these components. Thank you for watching, and take care.